Welcome back to the Sounds of Black Britain podcast. This is Volume 2. So who was the person that worked out how to set up a pirate radio station? Do you guys know? You say you've been in a few bathrooms.
Yeah.
Bathrooms, kitchens.
Sometimes the decks would be on the sink where the plates are meant to be drying. There's decks.
There was a point where people used to say Giggs is Grime, like Giggs, yeah, the Grime, like Grime is taking up Grime. And for me, he's everything, but he's hip hop.
Yes, Trevor Nelson
I know
had
Trevor,
dreads,
yeah.
yes.
No, but I was there when police came once.
Why did the police come?
Basically, Rinse was in Wiley's house for a little while.
It made icons of DJs and gave some of the biggest names in the game a place to cut their teeth. It told people the info we needed to know and where to go, and it created communities that went far beyond those we know in real life. Pirate radio was all about the music and so much more. Afrobeat, hip-hop, lovers rock, jungle, UK garage, grime, Afro swing. With its fusion of Caribbean, African and American sounds, all served with a UK twist, Britain can claim to be black music's most innovative hub. This is Sounds of Black Britain. On this episode, we'll be looking at how Black Pirate Radio provided a platform for the sound of the underground in the UK and how it created a vibe that still exists to this day. Joining me for this one are DJ Target and DEE. Do you remember the first song you ever played on Pirate Radio, Target?
Not the actual first song of the first ever set. I remember some of the songs that would have been in there.
What were the early tunes you was playing?
Like Leviticus, Burial, that big, and
okay.
like classic. That was the tune that got me wanting to mix. That was the first record I ever had, like in terms of as a DJ.
Yeah.
That's the first ever one. That would have been in there. Probably like Shy Effects.
Helicopter.
Yeah, or Wolf.
What year were we talking? How far are we going back?
This is like 96, 5.
He's a legend.
Maybe. Still bagging them out.
He's a legend.
27. And them songs, you could play them now as well.
Yeah.
Like a carnival and play that, it's going off.
It's going mad. Okay, same question to you, DEE. Do you remember the first lyric you ever spat on radio?
I don't know the first lyric I ever said, but I know what lyric was involved.
Go on.
Men a ramp, men a skin, men a laugh, men a grin.
I remember that, bro.
I think that was
Jungle
on
Ting.
there, or even...
What station was it? Do you remember?
It was on a station called... I forgot what it was called now. But Rico was on there.
Not Pressure FM.
Could have been Pressure FM, actually, yeah.
I
Pressure
know
FM.
Rico was on there.
Yeah, Pressure FM.
What area was Pressure FM in?
That was in Leytonstone,
Okay.
Bachas. Because I stumbled across it.
What do you mean?
I was just on the block, then we could hear music. We could hear, oh, tie everyone into it. We could hear music, yeah? So then man went up to like the 3rd floor, and then there was one door.
Wait, the 3rd floor of what? So you just could hear music?
In the block, yeah.
And you just walked in?
The door was just kind of open. Pushed it, me and my guys walked up. Then there was a DJ DJing, yeah? And he didn't even care about us. It's like, it's not his yard. He got sent to mix. He's just seeing us coming. He's just like, all right. So then we just even sat down in the room. Then it was like, wow, what's going on here? Then the next few days I turned up again. And then that's when Rico was there. I come with a guy, he brought his rhythms with him because he thought he could mix as well. But he didn't know that. All the DJs, bruv, they don't know who you are. You can't just
You can't just jump on.
yeah, so he had to just sit there with tunes now, but then I just kind of, what. And I went on the mic and I murked, and that was like one of my first ever sets, man.
Basically, nowadays we call that a pop-up radio station.
The whole of Pirate Radio was pop.
Yeah.
Was pop-up.
It was pop-up. Even if you was there for a few months, that studio, you're not
Wasn't
staying
going to be there for long after.
A station was at one place for longer than like 6 months. Like you've done something magical.
For it to even last that long.
They was on the move, or they'd get caught, or raided, or they'd take the aerials down from the block, the other block where they was put up or whatever. So you constantly was like, I remember Rinse was in every tower block in Bow. has had rinse in it.
The heyday of Black Pirate Radio was probably the 90s and noughties, when jungle, garage, and grime burst up from the underground to take their places at the musical top table. But pirate stations played a major part in helping rap, soul, funk, dancehall, reggae, all the good stuff, find their audience in the UK too. In fact, pirate radio stations have existed in Europe since the 1950s, when stations broadcast illegally, without national licenses, from ships anchored in international waters, hence them being known as pirate stations. As the Windrush generation and their descendants settled into life in the UK, the music they loved was conspicuous by its absence from British radio stations. And as time advanced, they realized that if they wanted to hear R&B, reggae, soul, soca, high life, or hip-hop, they were going to need to make it happen themselves. Technology came on over the years, making broadcasting easier. And rather than boats, a new generation of DJs began playing the music they loved from tower blocks and across the FM frequencies. So before you were walking into random flats on the 3rd floor and spitting on pirate radio, where were you MCing?
I was MCing in my boy's yard in the same block. Yeah. Just on the other side.
But not on radio?
No, just practicing in his bedroom. This was our life. Yeah. You know them ones, that's what we was doing, just practicing, and then all of a sudden, man, I hearing rhythms from... This was like not a dream, but it was mad. It was a mad situation.
I was going to say practicing for what, but there was no...
Just having fun. We were just having fun. He just got decks for Christmas or his birthday, and then just had like 3-4 tunes in the beginning, and then got more. He was even on a bashment thing at first, and then started getting jungle. And I was practicing how to mix at the same time. Yeah, but then things got serious, and we started doing tapes and giving it out to people in the whole of like Leighton, Bow. So when I used to do sets here, I had a piece of paper now, and then I used to write down everyone, yeah, that I could just think of, like school, anyone. I said, oh, big up Bradley.
Like,
big up my sister, like big up, and then it's all on a tape. Give that to them.
Oh.
Give it to them. That everyone's got a big up. It's
almost like it's like a radio show.
Yeah.
But like pre-made.
Yeah. So I was just imitating what I was hearing. So on the radio station, they're doing the shots, but I'm not on radio. I'm just doing the shots. And when it's being played, it's sounding like it.
Yeah.
That's genius marketing.
Yeah, 100%.
To just write down all the people that you're going to give the tape to.
Yeah.
Because then they're going to want to show other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that was a thing. Like that was one of the things you used to be gassed about. Like you listen to like Cool FM and you'd phone up their phone line. I remember this one. It's actually a funny story. I used to listen to Cool FM, like everyone did. They was like the big boys. This is before we was on pirate radio. Yeah. So you listen to them and you'd phone up and try and get a shout out. But when you phone their studio, they'd answer the phone, like it'd be a mobile number or whatever. Yeah. When they'd answer the phone, it's so loud in their studio. They're like, hello. You can just hear like it's just going off in the back. Yeah. So you'd say your shout out, they'd be like, what? Say your shout out again. Like you're telling them about 10 times, and then they're like, yeah, got it. Put the phone down. So once I did this, like, was getting ready to record it, because obviously you want to
make sure you catch your shout out.
You want to show everyone that MC Det and whoever's shouted you out. Yeah. So I phoned up. I think I was bigging up a couple whoever my friends was with. So I've said like, big up Breeze, big up Sky Juice. Yeah, I remember him definitely was there. And I was like, big up Target. And they've said he's gone through all the names. He's like, yeah, big up Breeze, big up Sky Juice, hold tight Chachi. Like I was like he didn't hear. He heard Chachi.
What, and you recorded it?
Yeah, I recorded it. Like, me and my friends used to laugh about that for years. Like, literally, if I phone Breeze now and say, who's Chachi? He will bust up. Because they will remember that.
I'm surprised that didn't end up being your name. That's the kind of thing that,
I may as well just ran with it.
Yeah, you should just be like, that's who I am now. That's
my
amazing.
Big shout out on Brocky and Det, and it was Chachi.
Wait, so why were people listening to pirate radio? Were they not playing music that we liked on regular radio? And what was regular radio at the time?
Like regular radio then was like, you obviously had Radio 1, but that was straight up pop.
Okay.
Mainstream. You had Choice FM, things like that. They would play like your R&B, bit of rap, but US rap.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then at these times, jungle and after that garage was like the sound of the youth. So everyone was listening to jungle, maybe bashment as well. But there was no stations, legal stations that were playing any of that.
What?
So
None at all.
I can't think of one that was.
Not really, you know.
You
Not
might on Radio
really.
1 you might have had, there was like, I think Fabio and Groove Rider might have had a show, but their thing was late at night. It wasn't really MCs.
Yeah.
Even what they played was a bit different in comparison to like the DJ Brocky or DJ Ron and SL and all these guys that was in all these jungle raves. So stations like Cool FM or just pirate radio in general were just illegal radio stations set up that broadcast probably like just a few miles radius to the community. Like if it's in North London, they probably reach out to just North London, East, West, whatever. And that was where you had to access all these vibes. That was the only place.
I'm trying to sort of like line up that era with now and how we listen to music now. Whereas doesn't matter what song you like, you can listen to it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a world where where there isn't a platform that is playing the stuff that you like.
Yeah.
Which is it's like a privileged thing to say now I think about it. But I can't imagine a world where you turn on TV, radio, everywhere you go, nothing that you like has a home.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That was the one home for it. So I
Pirate
think that's
radio.
why pirate radio has been so important in jungle to garage to grime. Obviously by the time it was coming up to grime, like we was kind of front runners, whatever. But that still then it was like that's where you had to go to access it.
Yeah.
There was no internet. There definitely wasn't streaming services, TV even until Channel U came much later.
But in general, the streets was pirate.
Right.
So you would have to put yourself somewhere else to be in Popland.
Okay, I get you.
Understand? So for me, like I grew up in what I'm a part of.
Yeah.
It's not like
I get you.
it was hard to how.
Yeah.
I don't
Like, no, that was my everyday.
Yeah.
It was very normal. Like there were so many pirate radio stations, and like everybody was listening to pirate radio.
Yeah.
Everyone would be driving past, playing a set. People would be taping the sets to relive them, to share them out. So like, you didn't feel like, I can't find this music. It felt easily
flooded.
accessible, but when you look back now, it's like no. Actually, it was like people were going out their way, bending over backwards, doing all
To
this
make
stuff
sure,
to
yeah.
make sure that it could be heard. But it felt just normal, like that. We were surrounded by it all.
It's flooded.
So
it's
who was the
flooded.
person that worked out how to set up a pirate radio station? Do you guys know?
I think it goes back to like, I looked it up and like when I was writing my book, I was like, let me get some proper like
Yeah.
real knowledge.
It's an army thing, isn't it?
Yeah, like originally
army
pirate
thing.
radio started because there was a station set up that was offshore. Because if you was off the shores of the UK, like you weren't
Then it
within the
wasn't-
rules.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they started to call those stations like pirate radio because it was actually on a boat off
Right.
the shore. Like if you were like, I don't know, 3 miles out, I can't remember the exact distance, but that's where the name kind of came from. A station called Radio Caroline. I even remember the name.
Yeah, I
But this
remember.
is back like I think that's something like the 1950s or
Yeah.
something. And then people adopted that, brought it inland and just kept the name going. Obviously now you're actually operating within the UK
Illegal.
yeah.
It's
But
now it's really, really illegal.
But
Yeah.
then people just like it was a great way of having access to the community, broadcasting, playing music that wasn't getting played on all the like existing
Stations.
commercial stations
Yeah.
and TV. So it was a massive demand for it.
But specifically, like if I asked you now, Double, not to put you on the spot, to set up a pirate radio station, would you know how to do that? Would you know what equipment you needed? What, you know what I'm saying? How to actually get that to broadcast on the FM dial?
I could build everything apart from that. Yeah, the bodies performance, the body sets and the building, everything's quiz. But I mean, I know how
Yeah,
to.
same. I couldn't.
I
I've
don't
used,
know.
Don't
yeah.
you think? I've always thought in my head, it's
Scientists.
remarkable. There's a lot of things that we do in music that I think are amazing. Goes without saying. But that's a level of skill that I don't think a lot of people even really think about.
Yeah,
that
no, it's
someone
nuts.
actually really, and not just one person. There were
No,
how
yeah.
many
There used to
pirate
be a
radio
few, yeah.
stations?
And there
People
was
really
like-
had to study how to do
I
that.
think it came down to a small list of people.
People that could do it.
The whole
and there was it's like lots of stations went to this same.
One man was making the gigs.
You used to hear them talking about the rig man, and he was like this. I don't know, some like electrical don who knew how to make the transmitters. So multiple stations would all go to this same guy and get their different rigs and their different bits of equipment, and then have it. Then they'd obviously have to have the know-how of how to hook it all up. You got to put a transmitter aerial up on the roof. You got to have that somehow communicating with your equipment in the studio. There was a thing called a link box. Like, I didn't actually get into the technical. I just heard these phrases, and sometimes I saw them setting it up, but I just wanted. All I wanted to know was the station's on. This is your set time. That's what I cared about. But it was like, if you speak to like Genius or Slimsy and some of those guys,
there was actually a rig man.
Yeah, there's a rig man.
I feel like we need to pay him homage to the rig man at some stage, because he was really working.
Man, I think he's doing some deep stuff right now.
Yeah, imagine what he must be doing. Imagine if he progressed.
I bet he invented Bitcoin.
If he kept progressing the way he was moving, he must be.
He is working at MI5.
He probably works
Bitcoin.
for Tesla or something.
Yeah. He's the guy.
Doing some.
Well, rig man, if you're listening, we appreciate you, man. You've changed our culture.
Imagine there was no rig man. We wouldn't even be sitting here.
That's why it's so crazy to me, because we just turned the radio on.
Yeah.
I didn't ever think anything. The biggest thing for me was working out how to do the phono, you know, the red and white cables.
Oh, yeah.
To get the CDJs on the right side of the mixer. Yeah. Sometimes I have my left on the right and right on the left, and it was really stressful. So yeah, shouts to Rigman. We appreciate you. I joined Rinse in 2010. When I joined Rinse FM, it was still a pirate radio station. But they had left subs. We weren't doing subs anymore, which I'm really grateful about.
They leveled up a little bit by then.
We was like... Because I used to always hear my brothers talk about subs.
Yeah.
So can you give the people a breakdown of how pirate radio stations basically earned money?
So every DJ and MC would have to pay subs, and subs would be like your weekly fee to be on the radio. So some...
What was it? Score 5 or...
Like, depending on where you was. Like, I remember times when it was like...
a diver, a set.
Yeah, I remember $5 a week, and then I remember that going up to a tenner, and people being like, "Raw." It was like a big deal. Because obviously no one had dough then.
Inflation,
Like,
this is mad.
Yeah, this is... You wanted to be on the radio, though, so you made sure you had it.
Wait, so is it £5 per person?
Yeah.
Or is it five? Okay, so if you got a crew of 10 people, you're all paying £5.
Yeah. Wow. Everyone's got to pay the £5 or whatever.
But so that's well-deserved money, innit? Think about the electric, the rig.
Yeah.
The rigs are not cheap either.
Yeah.
I remember they getting hit multiple times, having to replace this equipment.
Replacing this and that. It's a bit like it's to give them the money because they make it look new, innit?
Yeah. So it wasn't even profit things. It was more just a running cost of the business.
Plus they used to do what they called the ad break. So in between each set, you'd have like...
Yellow.
You'd put in like a tape or a CD, whatever, and it'd just have like, I don't know, 10, 15 adverts, more or less all raves. So it'd be like, Rose Lee to Thingy this Saturday. Then the next one will come on and it's like, Thingy's barbecue. And like, those guys were paying a fee more than $5. I don't know how much, but like more than $5, depending on how big popular station was. Like if you was going on Cool FM, that's like premium. It's like getting an advert in a Super Bowl.
Circus.
You know, like Super Bowl halftime. If you get an advert when it's before Brocky and Depp,
it's mad.
You've got to pay bucks for that. So the ad breaks and the subs was their money, and then some stations had events, their own raves, so they'd probably make some money from that. Whatever. It weren't. No one was like. The owners of the stations weren't getting rich off.
That was my question. Was anyone caking off of the money they made from pirate radio? No. So a lot of that was for the love of just doing it. Yeah.
You had to be passionate or else it'd be long. Like setting up a station, going to the rig man, getting all these things sorted out. Then 2 weeks later, DTI come, Department of Trading Industries or whatever they're called. They'd come and just shut down the whole station, take your equipment, take the decks. If they catch DJs on in the studio, they'll smash up the records.
And they know the name of your station as well. If we hear that this station's back, whatever it's called, and then when it's gone back on, okay, we're back, people.
Yeah, it's like a big celebration.
DTI guys say, what? I'm going to go check that
It's like cat and mouse, like literally.
Yeah, so it's a bit middle fingers up sort of thing, man. And that's what I think's missing today. Today is more like everything's there. and you can just kind of put something in place and just get all
Yeah.
you don't have, you're not coming up with something and going through the pain of
Yes,
it
D.
to
Yeah.
get to the other side.
Yeah, it's just everything's a
Can
bit
be
too
more-
easy.
Yeah. My favourite thing when I was on radio was always the changeover. You get to know the DJ before you and the DJ after you really well because you
Yeah.
see them every single week.
Yeah.
In radio, and there have been countless infamous sets where you hear beef in radio, whatever, but was it always like that? Or was it actually cool with everybody on the station? Because
It was mainly
you were all
cool, man.
essentially,
Mainly
not in a
cool.
bad way, but you were all breaking the law together, right?
Yeah,
so it's like,
mostly
cool,
what's
man.
that sort of camaraderie between you all?
Mostly everyone was cool. Like
Yes.
people would mix up. Like say people who would be on before, like they might stick around and do a bit on your
yeah.
set sometimes, or like vice versa. Like mainly people were cool. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
If anything, it would be like if you had not. I wouldn't call it beef, but like if there was competition, it would be with like another station, maybe,
Oh, okay.
or
Yeah.
guys from another place. Like
Yeah.
I've always,
Imagine man running up on the next DJ like every week. Then man, I say, what? I get there half hour early this time. Man. I'm gonna get there before he sit further. But
Yeah.
like, nah, man, it's crazy.
But it was really like that.
Well, that's
'cause
how
it was
Maxwell D ended up like with us and doing which led on to Pay As You Go because he
Right.
was Nicky Slimting who does movies and that.
Yeah.
Now. He was a DJ and Maxwell was his MC and they was on, I think before us. And then one week Maxwell stayed on after his set with Nicky
Okay.
and just done some stuff with us and then that started becoming a regular thing and then a couple years later Pay As You Go had started and like
It just
so
made
it was
sense.
there. So that was made from like relationships that way.
Yeah.
But mainly everyone was cool. Obviously the MCs would sometimes get, especially once Grime was in full flow, there was
because
like
the culture of that is
MCs
just clashing.
would like clash and that.
Yeah.
But generally like, everyone was like pretty cool with each
Well,
other.
either you ever at radio when DTR came? Did you ever have an experience where you had to get out of the station really quickly?
No, but I was there when police came once.
Why did the police come?
Basically, Rince was in Wiley's house for a little while.
That's very smart.
I know, like it got to the point where like we've used everywhere. It's been in all these different tower blocks. Wiley lived in a tower block.
Yeah.
And I don't know what conversation he had to agree that it was happening. This is his dad's place, well. It's not like he ain't got the authority.
Yeah.
He's ended up in Wiley's for a few weeks. He's only meant to be there temporarily.
A few weeks.
Yeah, he was in there for. I remember.
What? And other DJs and people are coming
yeah,
through to
everyone's
the
coming
house.
up. The whole station's coming up. And
To his house?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was in Slimsy's mum's for a little while.
That's crazy.
Like
See, yeah,
it was in.
I've
Yeah,
been
you
in
just
a
had to
few
make it work.
bathrooms. I've been in a few kitchens.
Yeah.
You say you've been in a few bathrooms.
Yeah.
Bathrooms, kitchens.
Sometimes the
next
decks would be
setup
on the
stuff.
sink where the plates are meant to be drying. There's decks, literally like taps. and
what?
yeah,
What-
because that
what-
might
what-
have been the quietest. You know, like you had to keep everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'd go to you'd be in a place where you'd get there and there'd be signs all over the wall saying, "Do not put the volume past this thing." Really,
Fine.
you want to have it as loud as possible.
Yeah,
Sometimes you'd be somewhere where it was more bait or the neighbours are a bit onto it. So
Yeah.
you had to do sets and it was low and it was like killing
they
the
were
Wait, so
vibe.
why did the
They
police
were
come
the
to
worst.
Wiley's
Oh yeah,
dad's
yeah.
house?
So we're literally about to go on as well. The ad break's actually playing.
Yeah.
So we're next.
Yeah.
And I remember Bubbles, who ended up being in Roll Deep later, he was on, we had all rented out these mopeds. There was a moped rental shop, which was a terrible idea on their part.
It's
Because
not Iron Napa. This is
yeah,
mad.
but they tried to make Iron Apple and they was in Clapton though. Obviously, you didn't have to, I think you didn't have showed like, it was easy to get them basically.
Yeah,
It weren't
yeah.
like today where it's like a million things to prove. All the kids was all renting out these mopeds and obviously everyone was crashing them. The shop lasted literally like a month. I
I'm not
think.
surprised.
Yeah. So anyway, Bubbles was on one of these mopeds. He got pulled over
Yeah.
on the moped, but the moped was registered.
Oh.
The rental was out in Wiley's name. So they've come back to Wiley's house with Bubbles and the moped. They've got, I don't know how they brought the moped back, but they've come back about the moped, not about
Pirate Radio.
Pirate Radio. So they've come in. We're just sitting there and suddenly like 4 or 5 police officers just walked in. And we're just like there's police in it. Like we're literally gonna go on air. But they've come, they're asking questions about the moped. Then one of them's having a look around, like he's spotting there's like wires that are going up to the window onto some metal things going out. You know,
Yeah.
like stuff that don't look like your average
Yeah.
hi-fi or whatever was going on. And he's asking all these like questions like, what's that do? And we're like, no, we put that there because the microphone, and we're just making up lies, basically,
Yeah.
to try and make it sound like we're just making tapes or whatever. And luckily, none of them, like,
Actually,
none of them actually clocked. Yeah, they was more concerned with like
the moped.
the moped thing, so they went through that process. That got sorted out. They ended up leaving, but they looked in the electric cupboard. I don't know what made them look in the electric cupboard, but another thing that people used to do, a lot of the pirate stations, they could get someone to come out and like rig the electric meter.
Yeah.
Because obviously electricity on all day, all night
It's crazy,
is expensive.
yeah.
So they used to have a way of like basically like bypassing it or something.
Yeah.
And the police clocked that. And Wiley's dad got in trouble and that was the electricity.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think he had to pay a fine or something.
I can't believe they didn't give Wiley's dad an MBE.
Innit?
He should have got one before Wiley. For his services to music.
I know, innit?
He definitely should have got one. Dude, did you ever go on radio outside, pirate radio outside of London? Or were you always going to pirate radio in London?
I went to a station in Birmingham called Silk City.
I knew you
yeah?
was going to say that.
Yeah, I went on there.
What was that like? Was it similar to what you'd seen in London?
Yeah, similar. It was similar. Yeah, it was.
Big Mikey.
Yeah, it was a big mic.
What made you go to Birmingham?
Cause I just wanted to be heard in Brum, and it seemed like a good opportunity.
Yeah.
The station was kind of big over there, and I was already done a few sets with like Devil Man and a few other Madman and a few other people.
There was an MC called Madman. That's a sick name.
Yeah, big up Madman.
So it's funny because people now, when you go on tours and press tours and things like that, you go on radio because it broadcasts everywhere. But pirate radio, by definition, only broadcasts to a certain place. So you have to do a tour of pirate radio.
Yeah.
Like to be heard in Birmingham, you have to go to Birmingham, all the way there to be on a pirate radio station. But even then, you're going to get a small radius of people.
Right.
Even in London, but you used to go like there'd
North,
be
east,
west
south,
stations, there'd be stations in south.
Yeah.
You had to, if you wanted to be heard, you had to go and actually have a set.
Who were the big pirate DJs? So I'm thinking of like Trevor Nelson. When did Trevor Nelson step into...
I know
world
Trevor
of
from like
radio?
MTV first. Like obviously he'd been doing his thing before that, but I came across him like on the Lick show and
Yeah.
them kind of. I think he was even on. Was he on radio? He might have even been on Radio 1 by the time I knew about Trevor.
Maybe, actually.
But I know he did his thing like Pirates, then he was Kiss.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was thinking of.
He was called the Mad Hatter. He had dreads and all that. Like this is the Trevor before. I know bald
Yes,
Trevor.
Trevor Nelson
I know
had
Trevor,
dreads.
yeah.
Yes, that is very true.
And
So who else was up there? So it was Trevor Nelson. I'm thinking EZ.
EZ I knew not from pirate radio, but from going to garage raves.
Okay.
But I don't even know if he had a set on a pirate station.
I think he did.
He probably would have had.
Nah,
But
yeah, he
I
was
remember-
definitely on radio regular
Remember going Coliseum.
before he went on to, what was it, Kiss?
Kiss,
was it?
yeah.
Before Kiss, he definitely was on radio regular.
Yeah. Were there any DJs? Obviously, Target, you are a DJ. So,
Yeah.
were there any DJs outside of yourself that you were listening to that weren't necessarily part of your crews? Like, who were some of the
quite a
big
lot.
DJs?
Especially when I was first got into like jungle, which is like that was my entry into being a DJ.
Yeah.
All of Cool FM, all of them. Like I see them guys now,
Every
and
single
they must
one.
be sick of it because every time I see them, I'm like, "Bro, you don't even understand." Da-da-da. And they're like, "Yeah, I've told us this 10 times." Like all of them DJs,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
DJ
they're all
Brocky
hard,
and
man.
Det.
Funky Flair.
Yeah, R.I.P. Skibby. I know he's not a DJ, but like that era of that whole movement, they was like a big influence to all of us. And then moving forward a bit, and everyone was talking about this guy EZ, DJ EZ, and I was like, let's go and see what this guy. And I heard EZ play, and I said, I'm going tomorrow to get garage records. But I need to be back involved.
That's
Like he was so sick. I was just following everything he did after that.
Yeah.
But there was loads. Like that's all you would ever really listen to. Like my radio never went to commercial stations.
Yeah.
I might touch Choice FM for a little bit of R&B.
Yeah.
I think Dream Team had a show on Radio 1 on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So I might listen to that. But then even then that felt a bit commercial
Right.
to what we was trying to do.
Yeah.
You just soaked it up. You literally lived it. Like every spare hour I was like, I need to tune into this set or record that one or listen to a tape back of a rave, or when you weren't doing it yourself, it was like it took
Just to
over.
lock into radio on a random one, you just thought there's gonna be someone.
Yeah.
Huh?
So my big question I have to ask, where were all the women Because I think every time we hear these stories, there are so many men.
Yeah.
You're like, were there any women actually taking part in pirate radio,
ladies,
in MCing, in the cruise, in like DJing?
I remember like Lady ST, she was an MC.
Yeah.
Lady Daya. It's like, you know what's funny?
All the
They're all
MCs
ladies.
had to start with lady. Something. Like, all the female MCs had like lady at the start.
Yeah.
Lady this or lady that.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was more guys, but I remember them two, they used to like, they'd jump on a set with like 15 man and just shell it as well. Like, and there was each station might have had like one or two, more, like probably more female DJs.
Yeah, there's more DJs, I think.
Okay.
There was definitely females about. Like, just, it was like, very man-demy, but like you had certain females that weren't intimidated or
That was one of the things
off.
that happened to me as well. When I was on Rinse, that was a big question I used to get asked all the time is, you know, you're one of the few. I remember when I was on Rinse, Flight was on, like outside of the presenter space, I think Flight was the main DJ that I know that was on there, that was a woman. And it was never weird. And I grew up with three brothers, so my experience is always different anyway, but I never had a thing where I felt like there was loads of men here and there's these women in the corner. It never ever felt like that on my experience in pirate radio anyway. In that we were just always, it was just a mix.
Yeah.
There was no question about it. Whether you're in a rave and you're standing at the front with gun fingers or you're on radio, someone's MCing and there's another woman MC in there, it didn't have that kind of segregation in my age. It sounds like it wasn't the same for you guys either.
It wasn't like, there was more guys, but whenever there was females getting involved, like they was just part of the, like they weren't looked at as like, oh, these lot, give them a go. Like, it wasn't like that. It was like they was in and like levels with the guys. There was just less of them that was involved in it. But yeah, it always felt, even at the raves as well, it felt, everyone felt like they was on a similar playing field. Like when Miss Dynamite come through.
I was literally
like,
just gonna mention that.
that, like there's other examples of like, Stush and No Lay was early on. Like they used to just come and like they were just taken seriously, like, and part of the gang or part of the set or part of the like whatever was going on.
Come and I run track like boat from I don't know what you've been told. Bare peas on the gas, you never been told. Dirt. No, when I land down, Mike, I do dirt. Man can't chat to me about dirt. Raffle that make his man then blurt. Mighty.
Whether it was Wiley and Dizzy, DWE Kano, or my big brothers Jeremy and Skepta, many of the UK's brightest stars made a name for themselves in the heated, ultra-competitive atmosphere of pirate radio in the noughties. Can we talk now about grime music? Our love, my first love. So we've spoken about jungle, garage. Everybody sort of, well, mostly, everybody knows that evolution of how that music came, but grime specifically in pirate radio, would you say that was the first place that people were able to experience that genre of music? Or were there grime parties before?
Radio, definitely.
Radio?
Yeah. There was parties happening alongside, but the radio was the fuel for like everything else. Like that's where you'd hear your favourite MC. Like, a good example of it, bit after like, as the transition was kind of happening, Dizzy done a set with Slimzy. Dizzy was just like in our ends, like no one knew him yet, but people in the ends knew there's this kid, he's cold. The name was like spreading a little bit around, but then Dizzy went and done a set on Slimzy's Sunday show, which was like one of the main shows, and that got recorded by people and then sent. People used to record sets and send them to their cousin in Birmingham or Manchester or whatever, and I remember that set literally like almost blew Dizzy up overnight.
Wow.
Because it was the power of like pirate radio. Like even though you didn't transmit very far and wide, like the recordings would get shared and spread, and before you knew it, people from all over the country would come into Sidewinder because it was Dizzy's first kind of big event, and from there things just went mad.
Who not owned Sidewinder, but whose event was Sidewinder?
Mark Lambert. Yeah, there's a few of them involved. But,
so they just had a party called Sidewinder.
Yeah.
That just happened to be DJs, not just from Rinse, I'm assuming, Deja, from all over.
They were based outside London, and the party was in Milton Keynes originally. So
they're based in Northampton.
Yeah, they're based in Northampton. So I think they did Northampton first, and then it got bigger and bigger, and then they got Sanctuary in Milton Keynes, which was like 5,000 capacity.
Yeah.
Like a big warehouse.
Wait, so who was going to the parties in Northampton though?
Mainly then it was more people like from there and Midlands.
So it wasn't even Londoners travelling to Northampton?
Not yet.
Okay.
But then as they moved to Sanctuary, and then they'd start booking like Pay As You Go or Heartless or So Solid probably done it.
Yeah.
Like D would have been like, as he was bringing in more of the Londoners, like the crowd that was following all of us, they would start flocking to side. And then you'd already have Manchester, Bristol, Birmingham. So you'd go to Sidewinder and leave there with like bare new fans, or like you interact with all these people from. That's the first place that we went where I heard all these different accents.
Yeah.
Obviously, you knew they existed, but like hearing like black boys with Manchester accents, it was like new, or like with Bristol accent, or girls like, and that was like one of the main early like hubs. But then they'd be booking people off the back of, again, like pirate radio and how you built your buzz doing that. But that was a big hub.
D, was there a moment where you actually became, and I know your answer to this, but I'm asking it anyway, that you became a grime MC? Was there a moment for all MCs where that became a thing that you did, or was it not as sort of cut and dry as that? Because obviously you said you came up on Jungle.
It's not cut and dry. I think everyone else is cut and dry.
Okay.
For me, I'm everything. But when I look back and I look through some of my best moments for exposure, which is where these radio stations, these elements come. But there was so much going on before that moment for me to build me as me.
I get you.
And so I'm built from so much more.
Yes.
So that's not what built me. I was already built, and I walked in there.
Yeah.
There was a point where people used to say Giggs is grime, like Giggs, the grime, like grime is taking off. Grime. And for me, he's everything, but he's hip hop for me.
Yeah. There was a time when they started
even though
painting everything
he probably
with the
started
grime
on
brush.
grime, but what the people should know is like where he's taking off, innit? You know them ones.
I think it's also very important that you're saying that this conversation, as people are listening as well, I'm sure before you even said it, they've understood where you've actually come from, where your roots are, and the fact that you were in jungle raves and you were a fan of music, rapping at the time, and then you started making music, and then you were the person on stage at the raves until now. So you've been fortunate enough to actually see multiple genres of music.
Yeah.
I don't even have to say come and go, because none of them have gone, but you've seen them come through. What were some of those memorable moments for you? Whether it be a show, traveling, your first time even traveling abroad?
My first ever performance outside London, was Ipswich.
Yeah.
Before I went to Ipswich, I'd never ever met anyone out of London that can say they know me.
Right.
So I've gone to Ipswich with Matt 10, Sharky, Armour. We went down there as Nasty Crew. And I remember we went in the rave, and we done our set, and he was just popping off. Everyone was singing. And I was like, wow, they know the lyrics. These lot know the lyrics. And I was like, wow.
Because what you guys were doing was revolutionary. No one had done it before. Big question for you, Target. Do you think grime could have happened without pirate radio?
No, I don't think so.
Not at all.
Well, not that it couldn't have happened, but if you take pirate radio out of the way, to even get to grime, like it took us listening to jungle on pirate radio, to then listening to garage on pirate radio, to then be inspired to want to be on pirate radio ourselves, and once being on pirate radio ourselves, thinking, hang on, we've got a platform, we can like develop this music and turn it into something where we're talking about our lives. Like without all of that, you would have just been stuck at watching Top of the Pops or turning on Radio 1 and hearing whatever was happening on there. Like I can't see how you would have had the inspiration to do it. Like if there was some way that you would have come up with making grime, because grime music was like music for the young people who didn't have a platform or a voice and had something to say, but had nowhere else to say it but on pirate radio.
Right.
So if you take pirate radio away, then I can't see how
it begins.
I think it would have still happened, man. I think somehow what the radio has done is it's made us more professional, more it's helped us to line up. We want it, they want it. It's like it's
added a stronger connection between the two.
I think it's just it both together just worked.
Right.
But I do believe that without that, this would still be happening somehow.
Maybe just at a
and
slower
the
pace.
UK would be at a spot now, no matter what.
What do you think digital radio did then? What do you think the birth of us being able to DAB radio, all these different things, you know, pirate radio is no longer the place that everybody's going to.
Yeah.
Do you think that changed where, you know, things like drill music is now or things like that? Do you think that made a difference to what we all loved, which was pirate radio?
I think that...
Bearing in mind that you're on a digital radio station.
Yeah. But I think because now there is so many avenues, platforms, ways to listen to music and listen, like that's why pirate radio isn't as popular, because it was literally like it was needed. Like
Right.
without it,
Yeah.
where are you hearing this?
Yeah.
Like you might have heard a rumor about a guy, or you might have been able to go and see someone live, but it would have been at such a slow pace. Whereas you had all these stations that was just giving you this stuff, whether it was Bashment station, a Soca station, Grime, Garage, whatever. I think as we progressed and things started to become more accessible, the need for pirate radio got less, because now we have got the internet. We do have YouTube. We had a Channel U. We had a this. Then a One Extra opens is national radio legally. Like so, you ain't got to go to pirate radio to hear
get what you need.
this stuff. Like it's still there and it's still
I was just
bubbling.
gonna say, yeah,
and it's
so-
still. I think what it does as well now is like it's much more. It will never be like you can't take away that community feel of pirate radio.
Yes.
Like I think that's always, it was always there, but I think that's the one thing that will stay. But I think the need to like have to listen to pirate radio to hear certain things is not really there now.
I
Because
think we can bring it back.
we
We
need
let them hear certain
I
things.
know, innit? To start the next thing,
It
It was a different vibe,
that
yeah.
you can't hear
I was gonna
nowhere.
Can't match
So
that.
at the moment now, in my car, I've got the official FM radio stations, but there's still some pirate stations that I have to keep on because, like you just said, community.
Yeah.
It's knowing that you're listening to the same thing that people around you are listening to. It's like when, I don't want to use this as an example, I'm so angry with myself, but when Love Island comes on, and everybody's talking about it, tweeting about it, it's that same, that's what pirate radio is. It's knowing that people within a certain area are all tuned into the same thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder how, if that is the role that it plays and will always play, how do we ever see a time where it is a prominent source of radio that people want to listen to? Can pirate radio ever be the thing that people say, oh yeah, there's this and this and this, but I have to still listen to this pirate radio station?
Yeah, I think what you said about, like, I can imagine, like, because now I'm seeing it as if we knew that Gigs, Blade Brown, Stormzy,
Yep.
all these men are going on radio at 7.
Yeah, that's true.
Mate, if they're going on YouTube, like whatever
find-
they're
yeah,
going,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
a big thing.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
But this is
On
what I'm
that
saying, like,
sense,
because
like-
if you want to hear Gigs now, you can pick up your phone and listen to his
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
catalogue,
yeah.
or you can go on YouTube, or you can go on Thingy, or you can watch him on an interview, or you can go to a thing, or he's at a festival, or like,
or he's on
there's so many-
pirate radio
Yeah.
talking some next
Yeah.
I was just going to say,
Yeah,
the only
yeah.
thing that all of those
can't-
mediums
yeah.
lack though is
Is
that
the
live
essence,
element
yeah,
of
like,
just,
yeah.
he is
Family
there
of-
right
Yeah.
now, he's there right this second now.
yeah.
There's something about live, and you're in radio, you know it, and D, you've been in radio for many, many years, you know that feeling of, it's happening now. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to, there's no tape, you don't want to wait until it
Yeah.
goes on demand, like you want to
Yeah.
go and listen right this second.
Yeah, I think that you can't never take that away.
Yeah, I will say though, I wish everybody had the skill though. Even though I know pirate radio isn't something that people have to do, I wish everybody had the skill of being able to host a 2-hour show on pirate radio, because I think something comes with that you can't get anywhere else.
Definitely.
And that I think has really there are certain people that have been on pirate radio that have a skill set now they've mastered it because of how much time they put into that. Yeah. And I think a lot of artists these days would really benefit from having the skill of you've got 2 hours, entertain people.
And not only that, it was like training camp.
Exactly.
Like you had to prove.
Exactly.
You couldn't just make a song that was a banger and then upload it tomorrow and by summer you're at Wireless.
Yeah.
Like you had to go and be murking every week against other guys who were murking.
Yeah.
And you had to stand out. You had to develop that tough. It's like a toughness. Plus, this is in a crackhead's house or it's in someone's kitchen. Like you're already doing stuff that's.
Your life's on the line at this point. Like you better deliver. Otherwise, this was a waste of time.
To even be doing that, you're just prepared. Like you're self-sufficient. Like now, it's like I said, I can make a song tomorrow. Or some you can make a song tomorrow, upload it to GRM, the views start flying. Next thing you know, he's got a record deal. He's at a festival. He gets to the festival and he's never performed.
No skill sets.
Whereas like, especially from like our generation of MCs and DJs, by the time you got to anywhere good, you've been MCing through the headphones. You've had the mic. I've had the mic as headphones. My headphones are broke, and you've got like decks of mashed up equipments. Like all of that stuff is like it's building you up into being able to handle it.
Absolutely.
But that there was like a special camp you could send them off to, like a pirate radio camp.
We're gonna make it. There you go.
We'd make the hardest.
You know what I mean?
Your pirate radio training camp is gonna be amazing. You guys have definitely provided us with a beautiful scope of education around pirate radio, and it's been a pleasure to speak to you both.
Thank
you so much.
Yeah, man.
Well, that's it for this episode. What a journey we have been on in Sounds of Black Britain, talking about Black British musical and cultural history with some of the biggest names in the game. Next time, we'll be looking at the influence of soul, funk, and jazz on British music and culture. Join me then as we delve into the sounds of the Black Atlantic. The Sounds of Black Britain podcast is brought to you by the Black Curriculum and produced by Unedited. Presented by me, Julie Adenuga. Our executive producer is Andrew Spence. The series producer is Sifa Inchi. Our assistant producers are Akeem Moore-Nickel and Buki Fadipe. This episode was filmed by JJ Gemio. The series is written by Drew Christie. Our sound designer is Tony Onuchukwu.